Hello, and welcome to the Kentucky Department of Education's webinar on staffing allocation for districts and schools implementing school-based decision-making councils, or SBDMs. During this webinar, we will begin with an overview of the statutes and regulations that outline the requirements for staffing. We will then review important dates to remember, as well as walk through the staffing allocation workbook that is designed to assist districts in allocating the statutorily required amount of certified and classified staff to each school, implementing a school-based decision-making council in a district, and we will conclude with staffing allocation reminders. KRS 157-360 outlines the base funding level for each grade. Each of the grade levels are required to be funded at a minimum at the ratio outlined in the statute. Grades K through 3, schools that contain kindergarten through grades 3, are to be funded at a 24-to-1 ratio, and kindergarten aides are to be funded at a 24-to-1 ratio. Grades 4 is to be funded at a 28-to-1 ratio, grades 5 and 6, 29-to-1, and grades 7 through 12, funded at 31-to-1, with the additional requirement of not exceeding 150 pupil hours. Cited on the slide are statutes and regulations that reference particular staffing allocation requirements and guidelines. KRS 158-102 and KRS 160-345 set staff requirements. Under KRS 158-102, each school is required to employ at least a part-time school media librarian. And KRS 160-345 requires that each school have an administrator. Each section of 702 KR 3246 outlines allocations for different school needs. Section 4 outlines the allocation for certified staff. Section 5 outlines the allocation for classified staff. Section 6 outlines the allocation for instructional materials. And Section 7 outlines the distribution of the balance between the amount from Sections 4, 5, and 6. There are 3 important dates to remember related to staffing allocation. March 1st is when a tentative allocation of funds is due to the school council, and a final allocation is due May 1st. September 15th is when any adjustments made based on attendance are due to council. To assist with the different requirements as mandated by statute, the Kentucky Department of Education created a workbook to assist with staffing allocation. This workbook considers all of the base funding levels for all grades, as well as that 150 pupil hour requirement. If you use the previous version of the workbook, the KDE recommends downloading the newest version posted on the School-Based Decision-Making Technical Documents website. And the newest version boasts several updates, including a single certified staffing allocation spreadsheet that accommodates all grade levels of schools, as well as accounts for the 150 pupil hour requirement for schools with grades 7 through 12, a classified staff spreadsheet for kindergarten assistants, clerical, and custodial staff, as well as spaces for school to use for other classified positions, and a spreadsheet dedicated to keep track of all the values calculated by that spreadsheet. This is a screenshot of the revised workbook. When you first open the spreadsheet, you will open on this tab. You will notice the different Excel tabs on the bottom of the screen, and I'm going to go through each of them individually. The first page includes statutory and regulatory references to staffing allocation. These are also the same statutes that we referenced at the beginning of this webinar. The second page dives deeply into KRS 157-360. In addition to the base level funding requirements, it also explains how the workbook calculates the 150 pupil hour requirement. Tab 3 is the direction page. The directions are separated by table and explains how to use the table on the certified and classified staff pages. We're going to jump into those tabs now to provide context about how the direction tab is laid out. The certified tab is the 4th tab at the bottom of the spreadsheet. Table 1 is only required to be completed if the school you are calculating staffing allocations for contains grades 7 through 12. The total instructional time is the time students are receiving instruction for the entire day. The length of instructional period is the amount of time for class. If you have classes that vary in instructional length, you will need to input the shortest of the instructional periods. Both of these are measured in minutes and are used to calculate the 150 pupil hours. Table 2 is where you input the number of students for each grade. You enter the number of students in the second row of the table. The table will automatically calculate the required certified staff funding for that grade based on statute. You can change to the third row by inputting a lower number, but if you input a higher number, the cell will turn red to make you aware that you are not using the ratio required by statute. The final row of the table, which is highlighted in blue, displays the total positions that are required to be funded in that school. Table 3 contains pre-filled information. Statute requires an administrator and at least a part-time media specialist. If you change those values to 0, the cell will turn red to indicate that those values are not compliant with statute. Table 4 is where you can input the number of certified staff currently at your school, such as the number of assistant principals, school counselors, teachers, and other certified staff at the school. The final row is the total certified staff, and that value should be at least as much as the value calculated in the blue cell of Table 2. Tab 5 contains information on classified staff. Similar to the certified staff tab, you can input number of students in the gray row. The only statutory required value is the ratio of kindergarten assistants, which is a ratio of 24:1. You can input a lower value, but if you input a higher value, the cell will turn red. This tab can also be used to calculate the number of clerical and custodial staff for a school in your district. The amount of clerical and custodial staff calculation is a local determination. If you are using this to calculate the number of custodial staff and your district policy uses square footage, you can enter the square footage of a school in the grade line instead of students. Tab 6 is designed for your use. The information in the certified and classified staff is not saved by school, so you are welcome to use the school list tab to keep track of the schools and the values calculated in the previous tabs. The user will need to input the information manually as this is not automatically updated with the completion of the previous tabs. Before we end, a few reminders. The district staffing allocation is required to be approved by the local Board of Education. And in addition to approval by the local Board of Ed, any changes that are made to staffing allocation policies must be submitted to the Kentucky Department of Education for review. Upon review, you will receive communication either informing you that your policy meets the statutory and regulatory requirements or requests more information or clarification. If you have any questions on staffing allocations, please feel free to reach out to the Office of Continuous Improvement and Support.